So you can think of AI is like this big circle of things, and ML is just a subset of AI. So ML, machine learning, is a way you apply artificial intelligence.
Hey friends, welcome to the Techunlocked podcast. I'm so glad you're here. This show aims to demystify tech careers and diversify the tech industry by giving you the keys to unlock your successful tech careers. I'm your host, Grace McJones. Let's jump right in. All right, welcome everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Techunlocked podcast. I'm super excited for this episode today. I'm with an amazing woman in technology who is in data science, and I feel like this would be a great episode just to learn more about this career path and what it is, because I feel like data science is kind of like a buzzword. I don't know. Yeah, it is for the most part. So help me welcome Sundas Khalid to the Techunlocked podcast. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you so much, Grace. I am great. How are you doing? Thank you so much
I'm,
for having me.
yeah, of course. I'm doing okay despite everything that's happening. But pretty good so far. It's a Friday, so I think we're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's sunny in Seattle, and so that's something that we're grateful for. So, as someone who works in, tech, specifically in data science, um, how would you, in simple terms, maybe explain what you do to a 5-year old? Like, what is it that you do?
Okay. That's a tough question, but let me see how I can explain it. So data science. So again, like as you said it, like it's a term that has been like thrown around, like it's a buzzword, and everybody wants to be a data scientist. Everybody wants
Right,
to do data science work, but
right.
it's but people don't understand that it's like a very big field, and then within that field, uh, they're like niches within the data science job family. So
Mm,
basically, what data science is, it's a multidisciplinary field consisting of data engineering, statistic, machine learning, and it combines all of them together and it produces an outcome. Now, again, like this definition is not not the greatest, and it's especially for a person who is not in data science, it's hard to understand. So I'll try to give an example. So let's say this is how I would explain it to my kids. Just like one example of like how data science you can like use it for prediction and all of that. So for example, my daughter, she's into like K-pop music, right? So
yeah.
she watches. She is
Oh
like a
my
big
gosh.
fan. So based on that, like as a data scientist, I have that information, like what kind of K-pop music she has listened to before. So based on that, like when she comes back to like YouTube again or Netflix again, I know that these are the kind of things that she likes, and this is what I'm going to like give her relevant information again. So in a simple terms, it's more like you can think prediction is one of the fields, like one of the niches within data science, where I have your past behavior, and then based on the past behavior, I basically do analyze the data, and then I basically make decisions for the future. So I give you recommendation. Another example would be like if you're a 5-year old, I'm sure like you love toys, and let's say if you're into Harry Potter toys, and I know like every birthday you get like one Harry Potter toy. So I have that data and that information. So let's say if you have like last 4 years you got Harry Potter toy, I when I give you recommendation, since I know that you already have those four toys already, I'll give you recommendation for the new Harry Potter, that is toys that are coming up or like new things that are coming up that you would like. So you can think of like a data science job family is basically turning data that is already there into information that people find relevant, and businesses can use that information to kind of like move their business forward.
I love
Was
that.
that helpful?
Yeah, I was like, I love that simple example because while you were talking, I was just thinking about when you mentioned YouTube. I'm like, yeah, like even Instagram, right? Like if you go on the Explore feed and it's like because you've liked this type of photo, it's like pops up more similar content, and so like you can see that even on Twitter, like a lot of social media platforms where it's like, oh, based on what you've liked, tweeted, Or Netflix, what you've watched is like there's a recommendation because we know you now, and here's it's just
Yeah.
scary, but it's like here is some like recommendation for what to watch next or what to listen to next. So that's so interesting. And so you mentioned machine learning, so ML and AI. Like I feel like I hear those two terms like a lot, and I'm just like, okay, sometimes people are not using them correctly. So what is the main difference between them, and also how do they work together?
Okay. Yeah, so that's a great question. I think a lot of people get confused, like what is AI and what is ML? So you can think of AI is like this big circle of things,
Mhm.
and ML is just a subset of AI. So ML, machine learning, is a way you apply artificial intelligence. So now let's talk about like artificial intelligence a little bit more. So artificial intelligence is basically a set of computers that learn behavior and they try to mimic a human. And that's why it's called intelligence, because they try
Mm.
to act like human brain. And I think it would be good if I give certain examples. So for example, that every morning I would ask Alexa to like play music at this volume. And then every morning it would be the same thing where I would tell Alexa like change the volume because in the morning I don't want music to be so loud. And then eventually one morning I said, Alexa, play music at volume 3. And that was the day like Alexa said, okay, do you want me to change your music volume default to 3 in the morning? And I said, yes. Now Alexa learned from my behavior and it applied. It basically applied. So that's an example of artificial intelligence where it may have used machine learning in the backend to apply like learning from my past behavior and applying it to the future. But the way it does things, like now it has brought in like the human intelligence part of it. Another example, like artificial intelligence is all around us. Another example would be like when you upload pictures to Facebook, how Facebook is automatically able to kind of find, like if you upload a picture with like a bunch of friends,
Right.
and it
So
automatically figures out like, is this your friend you want to tag, or is this
right.
the friend you want to tag?
Yeah.
That's artificial intelligence. Another example would be if I use Gmail. So in Gmail, like there's like spam folder, right?
Hmm.
Gmail automatically put uh, certain emails from spam in the spam folder. And sometimes it doesn't. And then I will like click on that email and I'll like say like this belongs to spam. So that behavior, it automatically learns like what kind of things that I think that are spam. And then now it automatically puts those emails in the spam. So I never see them. It's actually all around us. Like
Yeah.
autopilot is another way of artificial intelligence. So you can think of like artificial intelligence is just like uh, how we apply human intelligence to like set of machines, and
Hmm.
machine learning is the way to apply it. So machine
Wow.
learning is the application. So
Yeah. I love that. I love that example. Like it simplifies it so much. And it's interesting, like, I guess just listening to you and how much you know. And I'm curious, like, how did you find yourself in tech? Like, because right now you work in Google and you're a lead. And can you tell us, like, how did you find yourself, in this position and just, I guess, a passion for data science in general?
yeah, for me it was all accidental.
I
so
told you that
I
was my life
so
too. I just found it.
it was just
Never planned.
I exactly, it was
Yeah,
not planned. I did not grew up primed to be like a woman in tech or women in
yeah.
data science. It was all just an accident. And I'll tell you a little bit. Like I come from a background. I originally grew up in Pakistan, and in my family, girls don't pursue like higher education.
Mm,
So my whole childhood, like my brothers went to a better school, and I went to like an average school because girls are supposed to get married and all of that stuff. So and that's actually what ended up happening. I actually had to drop out of high school to get married, and then I moved to USA. So even though like I was really good at studies and everything else, like pursuing a career or pursuing a higher education was not something that was like set for me, or that was something that was supposed to be my future. But like deep down I wanted to like break through those barriers and wanted to be a trailblazer. So, and it also like, it didn't just happen that I was like, okay, I'm going to do it and I did it. It was like a lot went behind it. Like one of the things that happened is like I almost died after I had my second kid. And that was the point where like, okay, I
Wow.
need to like do something and I need to like make an identity for myself. So I ended up going back to school. And even then, like I went to a community college, I took online classes. And even then, like I was not aware of there's a field called tech because nobody in my family was from tech. Like I didn't have a computer growing up. Like there was no internet. There was not even any mobile phones like back then. So so it was like, and when I started in accounting because that was like, that was something that I briefly studied in high school, and I was like, okay, I'm good at it, so I'm gonna pursue a career in accounting. So I did that, and then I got into University of Washington Business School in the accounting program. Basically, I was going to do my bachelor's in accounting, but then what happens like in business school, they make you take like courses in a bunch of different fields, and one of them was like information systems and data science. And that was the class where I was like, okay, this is exactly what I want to do. And that's what I ended up doing. I, even though like I graduated from the business degree, I paved the path for myself to transition into data science. I ended up taking a lot of courses outside of business school. I learned online on my own. I read a lot of books. I practiced a lot on my own time. And eventually I started at Amazon as a intern at in the financial analyst internship, but I eventually transitioned to a data engineer, and then I became a data scientist, and now I'm currently working at Google in the analytics space. So and I love it. Like it, like looking back, like 10 years or 20 years back, like I would have never thought like I would be in data science or there is a such thing as data science. But now that I have accidentally discovered it, I am just in love with it. And the reason I'm here, sitting here talking to you about it, because I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah, what an incredible story. And it was interesting because like we met at an event, right? Where we were I think teaching people how to like speak. And we're in a panel and I was just like just hearing your story, just like that's so amazing because I could identify with that where you just like don't have that exposure of like, oh, this is something I want to be. I know growing up I hated having like being asked the question, what do you want to do when you grow up? Because I honestly didn't know. And so sometimes when people see you where you're at, they felt like, oh, you've planned this, or like you're so good at your
Yeah.
job, like you've had the way paid for you, and it's so important for people to know and listen. Like, hey, like not everyone really knows what they're doing, and but it's like you having that tenacity and resilience to like keep pushing forward and to create a life that you want to live. And so whether you start, coding today or tech today, it's like, yeah, it's totally fine. Like we've all started in different parts of our life and we've all been through different things in our journey, but at the end of the day, it is possible. And I love that you shared that. And so, like, I think earlier on we talked about some key examples of how, data science is affecting the world we live in. And so I just want to dive more into that, like the whole COVID situation, and even now with, the protests and the like wanting, justice for, people who have been marginalized, brutalized by the police and things like that. And we see how like data and even technology plays a key part in like our everyday lives and interactions. And so from your perspective, how does the job that you do or the career you're in shape the world that we live in right now?
Yeah, great question, Grace. And I think uh, data science is a very new job family. It wasn't there like 10 years ago. It's very recent. And the world that we are living in today, it's filled with data. The internet has, like, I pulled some stats and I want to share those with you.
Of course.
Um, so, so more than 3.7 billion humans use the internet, and there is 40 trillion gigabytes of data that was predicted to be in 2020.
Wow.
And just looked at, and 90% of that data is generated over the last 2 years, and only 0.5% of that data is being analyzed today. So there is so much
A
data
lot.
that is out there. This is a lot, like, and it's just eye
God.
opening.
Yeah.
And I was like researching these numbers, and It was just amazing. Like in 2017, the Economist claimed that data replaced oil as the world's most valuable source.
Mm.
But like I, this analogy may have like because oil is still precious. But
Yeah.
just to give context, like how much data is out there, and there is so much more that can be done. Like there's so much like we have already seen, like with COVID. Like just giving an example, like in the Washington state, it the if you have seen that the flattening the curve,
Mm.
the curve, that is basically all machine learning and data science. The way that plot is built using the prediction models based on the data that was collected, and that data is used at the state level, at the federal level, to basically understand how we are doing, how many cases there are, and what is the trend that we need to maintain to be able to like get to that flat curve. So data science is actually all around us, but there is so much more that we can do with it. And I'm sure like with talking about like police brutality, and I know like tech has been like a big focus of like how different companies are speaking up, how different companies are doing things. And I'm sure like you have recently heard in the news like the face recognition that is currently used
Big one.
by the police. A lot of the companies now, people are speaking up. There is so much going on. A lot of the companies are now pulling back of how much technology that they provide to the police and to these people who treat people unfairly. So basically there is like the part that what I'm trying to get to, like is there is so much data, there is so much technology that is out there, and the way the future is going to evolve is through data and through technology. There is so much power that is in it. And just to wrap up my whole thought process is that we like the whole data world and the data science world is it's just in the infancy state, it's just getting started. Universities didn't even have data science program up until 2 years ago. It's just now that it's starting to like build up like the educational programs. The companies are starting to realize like I was looking at some data that 97.2% of the organizations have invested in big data and AI technologies. And in 2015, 20,000 there were like about 20,000 data scientist jobs, and in 2020 there are expected to be 2.3 million data science jobs.
Wow.
So that the industry is just growing and we're just getting started. So there is so much that we can do, and it's just like the 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 opportunities are endless.
That's that just blows my mind. And I feel like that's something in tech that I've seen where obviously being in tech, like we move so fast and new things are being innovated. And so I think about like even with cloud technology, like I didn't take a cloud class, in college. And so it's one of those things where it's just like we're moving so fast and new innovations, new things are being evolved. And it's like there's going to be greater demand. And also like for even education, people like, are we getting people ready for this types of jobs when we know that in the past it's more people stumble to it. And like I hope that with data science that people feel like equipped in a sense to like know what it is they need to learn to move forward. And just hearing you mention all the stats, it's like it looks like there's a ton of data. And it's like how do we decipher what's good? And sometimes some people are going to use that data for bad or just even just to make money, like ads and all that stuff. So I'm curious, what's the most challenging part of your job then? Like there's a lot of data, um there's a lot of investment in it. Like, so what is the most challenging part of your job and how do you try to deal with it from a day-to-day perspective?
Yeah, I will get into like the nitty gritty of my what is the most challenging part. And I think the data science job family in general is so glamorized, but people
Mhm.
don't understand that a lot of it is grunt work.
Yeah.
I was reading a study that said that on average, data scientists spend about 80% of their time cleaning the data.
Mm.
And but a lot of the time when we talk about the data science job family, we tend to focus on like the outcome, the end result of it, which is like the 20% of it, like applying the machine learning or applying
Yeah.
the statistical method and getting those cool numbers or outcomes. So I would say like it is grunt work. Like I would be honest and say like it's not as glamorous or as sexy as one perceives it to be. So like from my day-to-day job, like getting into that nitty-gritty part of it, like yeah, it is frustrating. Not all the data is available, and the access to the data is not easy, and when the data is available, it's not clean. So you have to like spend a lot of time like cleaning the data and understanding the data and like understanding the business context and the context around us, right? Like why exactly, because a lot of the times like think what data scientists, like I'm just complaining now, but what happens is like data scientists, like they just take the data and then they put it into the ML algorithm or like apply the statistic and then get the outcome. But that's not the right way to do things. Like the reason 80% of time is spent on cleaning the data and preparing the data is because understanding the data is so important. So the features that go the things that go into your ML model is basically how you basically get to like an outcome, and your outcome could be very different depending on how much you understand the data and how much you don't understand the data.
So what does it mean to
um,
clean the data then? Like what does that mean? Like how do you clean the data?
yeah, so okay, so now going back to the world example.
Yeah.
So about like I was talking about like how there is like 40 gigabytes trillion data is
Yeah.
90% of that data is unclean. And so when we say like the data is unclean is either let's give a very simple example, like when there are like anomalies in the data, for example, or there are like mistakes in the data, or there's like missing data. So and or there's like outlier in the data. For example, a very simple example, I'm looking at a purchase data, right?
Mhm.
I have 100 customers who have made a purchase, and on average, like those customers have made like $2 or $10 purchase. But then there are two customers out of the 100 who have made $1,000 purchases. And when I take the average across it, my average is going to be huge because those two people have kind of like skewed the data.
Right.
So now if I take the data as is and I build the ML model based off this, or like build any sort of model or give any sort of business information based off that, that is going to be incorrect.
Mhm.
So it's for me to be a make the data information, I need to look at the data at the deeper level and understand like those two people are outlier. And the way I would clean the data, I would basically either trim those, take out those two people, and then use the 98 data from the 98 customers. So basically that's what I mean when I say like the data is unclean. Either they're like outliers, or a lot of the times like I think like in big tech companies, and I think I'm lucky in the sense that data is very well prepared and very well managed. I think when we're talking about like the medical field, there's not a lot of data there, and a lot of the times like the data is not clean, or like data is missing.
Right.
And especially the data when we're talking about like collected through human surveys, right? So when you send out a survey and then you ask people to like fill it out, and then we use that. So a lot of the times, like there's a lot of context behind the answers that are given. So again, like going back to it, it's a challenging area in the sense because as a data scientist in the data science job family, understanding the data and having a good understanding of what you're working with is very, very important to make that information useful, and basically do your job.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and I feel like sometimes you just think that data is just like a huge blob, and it's just transmitted into like being used, and it's like there's a lot of detail and a lot of work that goes into making sure that data is actually clean, and it's important because like talking about COVID, like if the data isn't clean enough to say like okay, like this is how many people have been tested and whatnot, it can lead to misinformation that can cause a lot of fear and damage and things like that. So it's important for data scientists to really take the time to look at the data, do the work, and clean it out. So thank you for sharing that. And so for people who are trying to figure out like, okay, like how do I get into this field? Like this sounds fascinating. Like obviously it's not glamorous, like you said, there's a lot of work involved. But people who want to really take like what they see and turn it into something that's useful information. What are your top three tips to getting into the data science field?
Yeah, I'll give you I have like kind of like summarized this to three steps. There are three ways to get into data science. One is that you go through like the college program where you I take either do your bachelor's or your master's in data science. That's one way to go through it. The second is like taking a boot camp, and I think for a lot of the people, like going back to college or is not an option, or being able to afford like a college degree is not an option. So like taking a boot camp, it's not the cheap option, but it's like from the time wise, it can be like it can save you a lot of time because those boot camps are mostly like 12 weeks or 8 weeks. So that's another way. That third way is, which is what I did, is like self learn. Basically, there are so many online courses, there's so many books, there's so many blogs, there's so many resources that are out there, that if you're disciplined enough to spend time and learn on your own and apply that knowledge, you can become a data scientist. And again, like data scientist job family is not very well defined. So a lot of the data scientists that currently work in the field, they have like taken either the third route or the second round, because as I said earlier, like the data science degrees are just starting to get rolled out by the university programs and stuff.
And so when you know, I do feel like a lot of people who are surf learners, like that's a lot of motivation to move yourself, and you have kids and you have a family, like you have a lot going on. So how are you able to like manage your time with like learning, but also like balance responsibilities that you have and with everything that's happening? Is there like a schedule that you put for yourself? Like how do you just make yourself accountable when trying to learn?
Yeah, I think one of the things is like motivation is important.
Mhm.
And like just going back to my story, for me personally, I think the reason I feel like I'm so motivated is because a lot of the women in my family don't have the opportunity that I have right now. So I feel like I am in a place where I can learn and I can do things that I know if I had still be in a different circumstance, I wouldn't be able to. So I think that's a big motivation for me. And I also feel like this is my second life. As I said, like I almost died having my kids.
Wow.
So I want to live my second life differently. But then going back to like the discipline, I think discipline is very, very important. And I don't want to say like, I want to also add that like, my kids are bigger now, so it's a little bit easier. When I started school, it was very, very hard. Like I used to study at night, but I was determined so much at that time that I was willing to like sacrifice like social gathering and other things that I felt like are not important at that moment. So I would like study when my kids would go to bed, and I would like take online classes because that was like my first 2 years. Like online classes is what somewhat like helped me maintain that balance. But now that my kids are older and thankfully I'm not in school anymore, so I feel like I have the weekends to myself. But at home, like with my husband and with my kids, like we all have assigned chores, so all of us know like who is responsible for what. So it's not like I am doing like the 80% of the work at home. I make sure like I get equal amount of work from everybody because we are doing this as a family.
Yeah.
But again, like I would say, like I still like I compromise on social life a little bit, because I have, for me personally, I have like set things that I find that I think I need to focus on right now, and social life can come a little bit later.
Mm.
Some practical tips I can give is like I am very specific about my 9 to 5 calendar. So I will like put like time on my calendar, say like, and I have like it all color coded. So I will say like, this is the time I'm going to do this. This is the time my lunch break. This is the time my workout, or this is the time I'm going to be in a meeting. So I'm very focused about that part of it. So I don't compromise on my like 9 to 5 work. But after the work as well, like I'll make a to-do list and I'll say like, this is what I'm going to finish today. So I'm not the most organized person, but there are like a few things that I do to hold myself, like keep myself accountable and make sure like I'm on track.
Yeah, I feel like I hear the word like, you prioritize your time, right? Where it's just like, you know what you need to get done, and you make sure you have a plan in place that you actually get that done. Because at the end of the day, like you have to just keep yourself accountable, which is so important. And so, Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And so now we're going to move into our lightning round so we can learn more about you. No pressure.
Awesome.
Answer the questions in 6 words or less. Okay? Are you ready?
Sounds good. Yes.
Okay. What's your favorite piece of technology right now?
I would say like the VC meetings. Like I love Google Meet because I'm able to like be able to like connect with so many people remotely. That wasn't 6 words, but
It's fine.
video conferencing. Video.
What's your favorite social media platform to connect with people?
Instagram because it lets me connect with people globally. I know people from different countries all across the world, and that wouldn't have happened without Instagram.
What's your best career advice you've ever received?
Don't wait for your passion. Go with what you have in front of you.
Wow, love that. That's so powerful. What is something that brings you joy right now?
I would say home cooked food, which is my husband's job. So if he can cook, I'm really happy.
Yes, I love it. How would your parents describe what you do for a living?
They think I sit on the computer all day and I can take their calls anytime I want to. So
I mean, I think people think working from home means you just have all the time, and it's like, no, that's not what that.
they have no idea what I do.
What's the biggest misconception or myth about your job?
That it's very glamorous and very sexy. It's not.
Yeah. And then lastly, if you had a magic wand, and you could solve one problem in the world, what would it be and why?
If there was one thing I could solve, it would be poverty. I feel like poverty is the root of many problems that we have in our society. So if there is one thing I could change is I would make everybody equal.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I know that you mentioned Instagram is a great way to connect with you. What's your Instagram, and also what other platforms can people connect with you if they want to learn more about you and what you do?
Yeah, Instagram, my handle is Sundas Khalid, my full name, and with an extra D at the end, Sundas Khalid D. So on Instagram, I like to connect with people from all across the world I like to share my small wins and small failures. And the other platforms that I love is LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is the moneymaker because it's a professional network and it can connect you with so many professional. My first contact was through LinkedIn through a cold message. First contact at Google. So I love LinkedIn for that. I also like publish the talks that I give on YouTube. I write data science blogs on Medium. So I try to spread myself all over the place. But if you would say like where I am day to day, it would be Instagram and LinkedIn.
Awesome. And just to clarify, you're not related to DJ Khaled, right? Because we talked about that right
I
before.
am. I am. No, I'm just kidding. No,
Oh,
but I have to
just
thank him for
you know.
yeah, I have to thank him for becoming famous because now I can tell people my last name is pronounced DJ Khalid. So
You said that, I was like, oh yeah, duh, And so that's hilarious. Well, thank you so much, Sundas, for being with us today. I feel like I've learned a lot. I know that a lot of people listening right now are going to learn a lot. So thank you so much.
thank you so much, Grace. It was my honor to be talking to you today and to be on your podcast. Thank you so much.